Have you ever heard of a city built on a lake? A glittering metropolis of canals and pyramids that seem to rise straight out of the water. This isn't a fantasy novel. This was Tenochtitlan, the incredible capital of the Aztec Empire. But how did this magnificent city come to be, founded on a swampy island in the middle of Lake Texcoco? Our story begins with a prophecy, a divine sign, and a determined people in search of a home. For over a century, the nomadic Mexica people, who we now know as the Aztecs, wandered through the Valley of Mexico. They were outsiders, often viewed as unwelcome newcomers by the powerful city-states that already dominated the region. But they held onto a powerful belief, a prophecy from their patron god, Huitzilopochtli. He told them they would find their promised land when they saw a sign, an eagle perched on a prickly pear cactus, devouring a serpent. Imagine their journey, generation after generation, holding this image in their minds, searching for this one specific divine signal. They were driven, resilient, and patient, waiting for their moment. Finally, around the year 1325, their long search came to an end. On a small, marshy island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, they saw it, the eagle, the cactus, the serpent. The prophecy was fulfilled. This was the place. Many others would have seen a bug-infested swamp, an impossible place to build, but the Aztecs saw destiny. They named the spot Tenochtitlan, meaning the place of the prickly pear cactus. It was here, against all odds, that they would lay the foundation for one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. But how do you build a city on a swamp? This is where Aztec ingenuity truly shines. They didn't fight against the water, they worked with it. They developed an incredible system of artificial islands called chinampas. These weren't just mounds of dirt, they were sophisticated feats of engineering. They would weave giant reed mats, pile them with rich mud and decaying vegetation from the lake bed, and then plant willow trees at the corners to anchor these floating gardens to the bottom. These chinampas were incredibly fertile, allowing them to harvest up to 7 crops a year, feeding a rapidly growing population. The city wasn't just built on the lake, it was grown from it. As the population swelled, so did the city's ambition. The Aztecs began a massive land reclamation project. They drove wooden stakes into the lake bed, creating rectangular enclosures that they then filled with mud, stones, and rubble. Slowly but surely, the small island grew, expanding outwards. They built causeways, wide earthen bridges, connecting their island city to the mainland. These causeways were engineering marvels in themselves, complete with drawbridges that could be raised to defend the city or to let boat traffic pass. Tenochtitlan was becoming a fortress, a trade hub, and a home, all interconnected by a web of canals. Life in Tenochtitlan was vibrant and organized. The canals weren't just for transport, they were the city's streets. Thousands of canoes glided through the waterways daily, carrying goods, people, and news. Instead of traffic jams, you'd have canoe jams. The city was divided into 4 large quarters, or campons, which were then subdivided into smaller neighborhoods called calpulli. Each calpulli had its own school, its own market, and its own local temple, creating a strong sense of community. At the heart of it all was the sacred precinct, a massive walled square that was the religious and political center of the entire empire. Within this sacred precinct stood the most magnificent structure of all, the Templo Mayor, or Great Temple. This was a massive stepped pyramid with 2 temples at its peak, one dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and sun, and the other to Tlaloc, the god of rain and fertility. This temple wasn't built just once. With each successive emperor, a new, larger layer was built over the previous one, like a set of Russian nesting dolls. Each layer represented a new era of power and devotion. The Templo Mayor wasn't just a building, it was a living monument to the Aztec cosmos, growing ever larger and more impressive as the empire expanded its reach. The city also boasted a thriving economy centered around the Great Market of Tlatelolco, a sister city that was eventually absorbed by Tenochtitlan. This wasn't just a local market, it was an international hub of commerce. Historians estimate that up to 60,000 people would gather there every day. You could find anything imaginable: gold, silver, and precious feathers from the south, textiles and pottery from all corners of the empire, exotic foods like chocolate and vanilla, and a vast array of fruits, vegetables, and animals. The market was so organized and immense that when the Spanish conquistadors first saw it, they were utterly speechless, comparing it to the grandest markets of Rome and Constantinople. By the early 1500s, less than 200 years after its humble founding, Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in the world, with a population of over 200,000 people, larger than London, Paris, or any other European city at the time. It was a shining metropolis of whitewashed stone buildings, towering pyramids, lush gardens, and bustling waterways. Aqueducts brought fresh spring water from the mainland into the city for cleaning and bathing, a level of public hygiene unheard of in Europe. It was a city of order, art, and immense power, the heart of an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. The journey from a wandering tribe to the masters of a magnificent island capital is a testament to the Aztec people's faith, resilience, and unparalleled ingenuity. They saw a promised land where others saw swamp, and through sheer will and brilliant engineering, they built a world wonder. The story of Tenochtitlan reminds us that with vision and determination, even the most impossible environments can be transformed into something truly spectacular. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time to the legendary city of Tenochtitlan. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure into history. See you next time.